Buju don't para.
Yeah.
And has changed his name to Bnxn or Bnxn. What do you think about this name change?
Buju had an incredible year last year, 2021. Came from nowhere to become like the MVP of Nigeria. Even though we didn't rank him at #1 at the end of the year, and people had problems with that. But the thing is this, Buju has transcended the level of the Buju that sang Commander and some of these other records. Buju is an international artist now. Like over the past 2 years alone, you can see that he toured with Coffee, he toured in the UK, immediately after he dropped his EP last year. Even before he dropped the EP, the clamor for the EP and the noise around the EP, it was on Whiskey's deluxe album last year. So his audience has sort of widened. The internet and streaming and social media has made the world a global village. And you can see that the demographic that really consumes music in the digital era, most of them are really under 30. So it means that Buju's primary audience, most of them are very, very young and they're scattered across the internet. So that means Buju himself has become an internationally accessible product, right? Now, it means that the name that he carries is not just his name anymore. That means there are a lot of things tied to it. That means there's IP, there are trademarks, there are image rights and some of these other things. And trademarking the name Buju for reasons that I can't really say on this episode right now. Trademarking Buju became a problem. What I got as a matter of fact, right? If you are not going to be able to trademark your name and you can't trademark and you can't use the likeness and the image attached to it because for reasons beyond your control, then that means you have to find another name. It's that simple. Because let me give you an example. When players sign to Real Madrid, you sign off at least 50% of your image rights, right? Gestifute, the company owned by Cristiano Ronaldo's agents, Jorge Mendes, they sign players from South America, right? And they bring those players to the Portuguese league. What they do is either own third-party rights to the player or own the image rights of the player. So what are image rights? Image rights is using the image and likeness of that's associated with the player. So that means you can use the name for like brand deals, whatever else, right? Ronaldo, for example, when he signed to Real Madrid, he signed off about 55% of his image rights, right? But in 2013 or 2014, he wanted to get it back. Do you know why? Because when you look at Cristiano Ronaldo right now, his Instagram page alone, he has more followers on his Instagram page than over 40 major European clubs. Do you understand? So that means he's bigger than them. Cristiano Ronaldo's signing to Juventus, for example, the social media trend alone generated Juventus a weird load of money in sponsorships and endorsements, right? So that means, think about it now. A lot of artists, if you are not major, have not been able to do that until now. So in 2017, Cristiano Ronaldo got back a significant part of his image rights and sold it to Peter Lim in Asia because he has a huge fan base in Asia, and that has sort of snowballed into different businesses. For example, his hair transplant business generated that's in the likeness of CR7, the name, generated about $100 million last year, right? So if you are looking at that, you are looking at what artists can become, your image and likeness. So if Buju can trademark or use the likeness and image and everything that's associated with his name, and it can only generate money from revenue, shows and endorsements, revenue from shows, endorsements, and live performances, then he should change himself. It's that simple.
But this is a big move. What do you think about the new name itself?
First things first, it's a little late, but it's not too late because Buju really launched in 2019, even though he had been on SoundCloud. If you're on SoundCloud in 2017, 2018, you would know about Buju. But 2019 was when he really came on. But between 2019 and 2020, he really slowed down a little bit, so you cannot really say he was not really around. Then 2021 was his year, and then he had already dropped his debut EP on the name. So it's a little late, but it's not too late, right? But the thing, my major grouse is with the name itself. I mean, stylizing, I've always had a problem. Now, this is my opinion, it's not a fact. But I think it's a problem. And I think it's also a fact that I'm thinking it's a problem. That if you are stylizing a name, for example, a guy, Black, the R&B artist. A lot of people call him 6 Lack, right? Because why are you putting 6 there if you want B? I don't understand.
It's confusing.
Or Blast, the R&B artist, another R&B artist. Why are you putting X there if you want people to call your name? People are going to call what they see. People can't even pronounce the things that they see properly. For example, when people want to pronounce VIDIC, the former Manchester United defender, they will say Vidic because that's what they see. And it's Vidic, right? So the thing is, the name itself and the stylizing of the name. Buju, I was speaking with someone this morning, shout out to that person. The person was like, why didn't you just make the name Daniel Benson? It's simple. That's your name, Daniel Benson. The first song on your EP is literally about you. Daniel Benson. Shoot a video for it and rebrand. It's easier. Daniel Benson. The stylizing of the name is a little complicated. You're complicating it. I mean, it looks good as a brand. If you want to put it on a merch, for example, you want to put it on a clothing line, you want to create a drink around it, Bnxn. It makes sense from a brand point of view. But you can always create a clothing line around Bnxn, right? But saying that's your name, that doesn't really. Just Daniel Benson. Move it on.
Interesting. I already know where I stand on this, but do you think people are going to stop calling him Buju?
That's a very good question. Yes and no. It's very good that it just became Benson, right? But it's going to take a while before people stop calling him Buju. It's going to take a while. And even he is probably going to introduce himself, except he's very, very conscious about it. It's going to take a while before he himself gets into the program of Benson. You look at people who have changed their names in the past, and you look at, especially in music, it's very hard to change your name. If it's in sports, for example, it makes sense. People that have changed their name in sports, American sports especially, someone like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had the name before, or Muhammad Ali his name was Cassius Clay before. People got with the program eventually. At the start it was hard, but people got with the program eventually. It's easier in sports because when you're on the pitch, what's at the back of the person's jersey is what you're going to call them. But in music, the name is ingrained. There's no jersey to call. It's the name that you know that you're going to call, right? So with in sports, even if it's not on a jersey, it's the name that the person calls themselves that you're going to call them in the ring. But if it's in music, for example, it's hard to get with the program. For example, people are still spelling Kiss Daniel as Kiss Daniel in 2021. He has changed the name for like 4 years now, or 5 years. Changed the name 4 or 5 years ago. So it's going to take a while. It's going to happen, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. And for some people, it might never change. That's just a simple thing. For example, look at Tubaba. Tubaba changes. His name was Two-Face before. Only a few people call him Tubaba. Even if you want to spell it on SEO, you better not put it as Tubaba. Put it as Two-Face. That's it.
Alright, so you mentioned Kiss Daniel and Tubaba.
Yeah.
Has this happened a couple of times before?
Oh, it has. A few times. Nigerian artists that have changed their names in the past. MI changed his name to Emma Baga. That wasn't exactly a change. It was like an inclusion. Two-Face changed his name to Tubaba, not officially, but it was growing, so he wanted to change it to Baba. There was a time that there was a rumor around Wizkid changing his name to Wiz and remove the kid. Of course, that didn't work. You can't have a sense that they change your name to Wiz.
We heard this line also at some point.
Big Wiz makes sense as a nickname, but it's not exactly as a name. Kiss Daniel changed his name to Keys. Sounds raz, but let's move on. Who else? Blackface changed his name to Blackface Naija. And I think the biggest one over the past 10 years, Ted the Rapman changed his name as well for a while. Changed it for about 1 or 2 bodies of work, then changed it back. But the biggest one probably was Cynthia Morgan, who changed her name to Madrina, quote and unquote. You can see that never worked because a lot of people are still calling her Cynthia Morgan. I mean, it didn't help that she wasn't exactly as big as she was as Cynthia Morgan over what she became as Madrina, basically.
So do you think it is easier to change your name in the sports industry as opposed to music?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it the other time. I think it is. The people that have changed their names in music, you know this girl Money Long? Yes, I could say for hours. The song is huge on TikTok right now. Her name used to be Priscilla Rainier. But it's easy for her because Priscilla Rainier was bigger as a songwriter and a backup artist who sang a lot of hooks. Her bodies of work, the album she released in 2017 wasn't exactly as big. But imagine if someone like even Olivia Rodrigo wanted to change her name now, bro. That would be hellish. That would be really hellish. It would be bad. But someone like Skylar Grey, her name, she had a name before. She had a name in 2006, I think Brooke something. Ollie Brooke, that was the name that she had before. But she wasn't big at the time. So changing the name to Skylar Grey when she became bigger was easier. But imagine someone like Selena Gomez changing her name now It wouldn't exactly work, except you're rebranding completely and becoming something else. It might work. Maybe like I Am X. There's a band called I Am X, Chris Corner's experimental band. It makes sense because some of those things could work. But in terms of like bigger artists, mainstream artists, it's not going to be as easy. But in sports, it's easier because people are going to address you by the thing you call yourself. Do you know why? Because if a commentator in the ring or a footballer was to, the name on the back of your shirt is what they're going to call you. The name that you address yourself by is what they're going to call you. It's very hard for maybe Sadio Mane or Mohamed Salah to change his name to Richard Jefferson now. Someone is still going to continue calling him Mohamed Salah. It's very hard. So it's the name that people call people on that commentators call people on the pitch or in the ring sort of sticks. But in music, there is no pitch, there is no ring. The artist resonates with you as a person. So the name that you see first is what you're going to call them for the rest of your life usually. So it's very hard. It's much harder. And that's facts for me.